joint research and innovation. At its core, final word, Europe was born as a project of peace. And Canada, over the years, over the decades, has served alongside European allies in pursuit of that peace. It's that, in those circumstances, from Vimy to Juno, that the world came to know the value of our strength. But now we're working alongside the European Union to combat climate change, to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and to protect, amongst other things, academic and scientific freedoms. In these ways, the world knows the strength of our values. And this partnership, which is in defense and security and economics, really builds those strengths in both our jurisdictions and lives up to our values.
There you have it, guys. Don't really know what he's talking about, but today is Friday, January 9th. My name is Miloš Krajčnik. This is Canuck News. I don't exactly know what he's talking about. All I hear when he says, we're here to talk about defense, security, carbon goals, is we're just going to spend a bunch of money on a bunch of stuff that's not going to result in anything worthwhile for anyone's society that's taking part in these initiatives. Because the EU doesn't have a good military outside of like Poland. None of the countries have a good military. So I don't know what kind of defense cooperation they're talking about or security cooperation. Economically, the EU's in such a terrible spot. It's quite literally on the brink. It's teetering. The German economy is quite literally has been declining for like 8 consecutive quarters. So I don't know what's going on there. But I have a great story I want to talk about today because it kind of ties everything together with all of this lunacy that we've been seeing. This Canada asks South Koreans, Germans for auto sector production pledges as part of a submarine bid. I love it, guys, because it sounds more of nothing. And Canada, in this article, has just admitted something without saying it out loud. We're no longer making sovereign industrial decisions, guys. We're negotiating for relevance. Ottawa is literally asking for foreign governments to convince their automakers to invest here, and not because Canada is the best place to build, but because we're attaching those investments to a military submarine contract that will lock Canada into a 50-year dependency relationship. Guys, this should alarm everybody. Quite literally everybody. Because this story isn't just about submarines. It's about how much political and economic sovereignty Canada has already lost. That's the way I see it. So it goes, Ottawa has asked the governments of South Korea and Germany, 2 countries with companies bidding to build the Canadian Navy's next submarine, to facilitate auto industry production pledges in Canada as part of the pitches. A source familiar with the matter said. The Globe and Mail is not identifying the source, who is not authorized to speak publicly about the matter. Canada last year narrowed its search for new submarines to 2 contenders: South Korea's conglomerate Hanwha and the German-Norwegian bid that includes defense contractor ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems. Little side note: both of these both of the subs they're great subs. They're great diesel electric subs. Did a couple, I think I did 2 episodes specifically on the subs and what kind of submarines Canada should be procuring. But the technology that both of these companies have is really great. They're really great submarines. It says any sub deal will be a government-to-government arrangement, the source said, adding that Canada has asked the South Koreans to arrange a commitment for Hyundai to establish production in Canada and for Germans to beef up VW-related auto industry production here. The contract for 12 submarines could be worth tens of billions of dollars. Either submarine option would lead to a deep international partnership with the winning bidder, a de facto alliance. that would last more than 50 years on a contract worth upward of $100 billion, including acquisition and maintenance. So they're asking for companies to come. We need subs. We have a national defense catastrophe on our hands. We need subs. We cannot defend our national waters. But let's not just talk about how incapable we are of actually defending ourselves. Let's try and bring in more industry. It's not enough that this is going to create $100 billion of investment over its lifetime. Let's try and bring some more stuff in, right? What sense does it make to bring in military investments in with the same deal with civilian? It doesn't. It doesn't. The Canadian government is desperate, and they're literally just they don't know how to pull themselves out of the shithole they've found themselves in, so they're just pulling strings wherever they can. It goes, Hyundai does not have auto production facilities in Canada. VW has committed to building an electric vehicle battery factory in St. Thomas, Ontario through its PowerCo subsidiary. Industry Minister Mélanie Joly's office declined to comment on what Canada has asked for of the bidder countries, but it said it wants to see robust industrial benefits from defense spending. This is funny. He says, strengthening our military readiness goes hand in hand with strengthening our economy, in addition to securing the best possible tools and equipment for the Canadian Armed Forces. Every defense investment must also generate real industrial and economic benefits here at home. Defense spending creates jobs at home in the best way when you produce your own military hardware. That is the best way that you can produce jobs at home. Why do we have to look for foreign direct investment to create jobs at home? To create our own sovereignty. You don't create sovereignty by looking for foreign direct investment. You just open up more holes, and you create more leverage points for foreign actors to push on your own government, your own country. Anyways, I'm not gonna get into this deeper, but the way I see this is the wider story here is very telling, right? Canada is buying up, they're saying up to 12 new submarines, and that this deal could exceed $100 billion over its lifetime. We read that. And that final bid is going to come from the South Koreans or this German Norwegian consortium, ThyssenKrupp, right? So instead of evaluating those bids purely on military capability and national defense needs, Ottawa is asking Seoul to lean on Hyundai, and it's asking on Berlin to lean on VW. Guys, what's the request here? Let's commit to building or expanding auto production in Canada as part of a submarine deal. Really, guys, this should be such a telling fact of the shit storm that Canada's found itself in. We are not in a good place, guys. In Canada, pardon me. In Canada, isn't using defense procurement to strengthen sovereignty. It's using defense procurement to compensate for the fact that capital, manufacturing, and leverage no longer come here naturally. That's a big problem, guys. These investments are coming here purely because Canada is a good market for these people, for these companies to come in, right? They're coming here. We're trying to basically blackmail them to come in. It's not enough that we're going to have a $100 billion deal over its lifetime. No. Let's try and blackmail your government even more. That's such a good alliance policy, you know, like we saw in the X clip, guys. But so this isn't defense policy; it's Canada outsourcing sovereignty, and a sovereign country buys military equipment to defend itself. The most sovereign countries manufacture their own military hardware to defend themselves, quite simply. And Canada is buying military equipment to attract private investment that it can't secure on its own. That's a big inversion, guys. And so instead of asking guys, what submarines are going to best protect Canadian waters, our Arctic, our Pacific Ocean, our Pacific border, and our Arctic border, how many submarines do we need? Maybe we need a mix. No. Let's buy this, and then let's try and blackmail the country that we're trying to make a deal with to lean on companies that have nothing to do with this to also invest in Canada. Because Canada is such a great market for investing. 40 million people is exactly what you need to build a massive manufacturing plant, right, for the auto industry. What Ottawa is asking, though, is what purchase might convince foreign governments to pressure their companies to invest here? Because this isn't strategy. We're bargaining from weakness. We're desperate. And defense procurement is being used as an industrial policy workaround. It's not a sovereign capability decision. And once you do that, you're no longer in control. You're negotiating your own relevance. Now, I don't think that the Germans are going to be bad actors with this. And I don't think the South Koreans are going to be bad actors with this. But you open a lot of loopholes for bad actors in the future. You don't know what kind of a German government is going to exist in the future. You don't know what kind of a South Korean government is going to exist in the future. There might just be a Korean government. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen in 50 years, right? And no serious company builds factories where trade rules, costs, and access are all uncertain. And this is the reality, guy. We need to deal with this. We need to deal with this reality. Companies don't open up auto plants in Canada for patriotic reasons, because there's no patriotic reason outside of being a Canadian company wanting to do business in Canada. That's just the simple. They open up factories in Canada. We get that foreign direct investment that Toyota came, for instance, that Honda came, all of the GM companies. They do it to sell into the US. That's why they come. They sell. They do it, they open up shop to sell into the United States. And this is the first problem. We have a USMCA uncertainty. The CUSMA has not been resolved. We still have tariffs in place, guys. The market access is not guaranteed. And no board is going to sign off on $1 billion factory when the export market can change with a single political decision in Washington. It's insanity. Like, why would you commit billions of dollars when we haven't even regulated this thing with the U.S.? So you're asking companies to come here, but we don't even know what our relationship is with the U.S. And we're not even dealing with the fucking thing either, which is crazy. We're not even dealing with it because this idiot BlackRock Mark Carney is just running around the world trying to make deals instead of making the one deal that he needs to make with the United States. That's what's going to bring stability to Canada short term, is stability with the US. We're not doing it. The other thing is Canada imposes heavier regulatory permitting and ESG compliance costs than the US. Those costs don't disappear at the border. So why would someone want to build higher cost in a higher cost jurisdiction to sell into a lower cost one? Canada literally adds around 5% to the bottom line. And when you're building billions of dollars worth of finished goods, 5% is a lot. So why would they want to open up in Canada? Because we're carbon competitive. Yes. Thank you, Mark Carney. We're carbon competitive. That only makes sense if you're selling into a different carbon competitive market. But what the US did is they just got rid of all of that BS. They just got rid of it because they know that manufacturing competitiveness doesn't come from ESG. And the other thing is, you're asking VW to open up shop, open up a factory in Canada when VW is not in expansion mode. It literally just closed down a plant in Dresden that employed 16,000 employees. So Volkswagen is now looking at how it's going to supplant its European production in a lower cost jurisdiction closer to Europe, right? Might be in Turkey, might be in the Balkans. That's all up in the air. But you're asking them to open up in Canada, where manufacturing costs are just as much as in Germany, basically, to a certain degree. Essentially, to sell into the US, like, guys, that is not the posture of a company looking to add speculative capacity overseas. And so when Ottawa talks about pledges, what it's really chasing are conditional promises tied to unstable economics, guys. This is not leverage. This is wishful thinking. This is wishful thinking. And it's extremely short-sightedness on the part of Canadian politicians, specifically Liberal politicians, because anyone with 2 cents in their brain would connect these fucking dots. And on top of all of this, guys, even success would still leave Canada powerless. This is the main thing. Let's assume Ottawa gets everything it wants. Hyundai builds, VW expands, jobs are announced, press releases are issued, right? What actually changes? What's going to change? The capital stays foreign, intellectual property stays foreign, the decision making stays foreign, and the exit options stays foreign, right? Everything stays foreign, right? Canada wouldn't own the production. It wouldn't control the supply chain. It wouldn't command long-term industrial power either. It would be a branch plant economy tied to foreign political goodwill, locked into a 50-year defense platform relationship with no leverage if those companies decide to leave. What would actually be tying those companies from leaving if production isn't worthwhile? There's nothing. They're not tied to the 50-year defense plan. Guys, this isn't industrial sovereignty. This is dependency with better optics. And here's my core critique. Market rewards countries that are predictable, competitive, and sovereign, right? And they systematically punish countries and nations that substitute subsidies and political deals for fundamentals, right? Canada used to attract a lot of investment because it was stable and competitive and open. We had great relations with the US. This is why companies came to Canada. And now, the federal government is trying to attach industrial outcomes to defense purchases because capital no longer comes on its own. Guys, this isn't nation building. We're managing decline. This is basically what it is. We're managing decline. And what this really means for Canadians, this matters more than the actual submarines, because it means that we have fewer durable manufacturing jobs. We have less control over strategic industries, and we have greater exposure to foreign political decisions. We have long-term dependency disguised as partnership as well. And it means that Ottawa quietly is accepting or admitting that Canada no longer sets terms. It can only negotiate concessions. And to tie everything off here, guys, Canada is not strengthening sovereignty. It's trading it. When defense procurement becomes a tool to beg for investment, you're no longer a country setting strategy. You're a customer hoping for favors. When industrial policy depends on foreign governments pressuring private firms, you don't control the outcomes. They do. It's simple. And when even success leaves ownership, leverage, and decision-making offshore, that's not nation building, guys. This is, again, managed dependency. This submarine deal isn't about submarines. It's about whether Canada still believes it can stand on its own economic feet. And right now, Ottawa suggests that it doesn't. That's all I have for you guys today. Hope you guys liked today's episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. Stay informed. Stay curious, and God bless Canada.
This is Canada. Maple syrup and like Cabin say. Kick your ass all hockey season.